let's dive into something I'm sure is on a lot of people's minds these days, retirement planning. And since you're here with us, we're going to focus on navigating that here in the Emerald Isle.
And while we might not be able to ask those mythical leprechauns for financial advice, we're in luck.
Yes.
You've done some great research. We're talking annuities, pensions, ARFs, PRBs, all of it.
It sounds like you've really done your homework. And good for you. It seems like you're looking to have a comfortable retirement, which is smart, especially considering that Ireland's pension system has been changing faster than a river dancer.
That's right. Gone are the days of just relying on the government to take care of you in your golden years.
Makes sense. Times are changing.
It's all about taking control, understanding your options, and making choices that suit you.
Okay, I have to admit, I like the sound of taking control. But usually with more control comes more decisions, right?
That's the trade-off, isn't it? More freedom means more responsibility.
So true. What's changing so rapidly that we really need to be aware of?
Well, one major factor is that we're all living longer these days.
Well, that's good news.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It is fantastic news. But it does mean that those retirement savings need to stretch a bit further.
I hadn't thought about it that way.
And then on top of that, we're seeing this big shift away from those traditional defined benefit pension plans, where you were promised a specific income.
Yeah, those seem less common now.
And moving more towards those defined contribution plans, where your income depends on how well your investments perform.
Okay, so that's where that whole more control, but also potentially more to worry about thing comes in.
You hit the nail on the head. You've got all these options, which is great, but it does mean the responsibility falls on you to make the right choices.
Especially since it seems like these days you never know what tomorrow will bring.
Exactly. And this is especially important for anyone out there listening who isn't already part of an occupational pension plan, because Ireland is about to launch this new automatic enrollment retirement savings system. And it's going to have a big impact.
Automatic enrollment. Tell me more about that. That sounds important.
So basically, if you're not already in a workplace pension, this system will automatically enroll you in a defined contribution plan.
Ah, so it's kind of like a safety net for people who haven't gotten around to setting something up yet?
In a way, yes. It's really all about encouraging people to take charge of their retirement savings and to make sure everyone has the opportunity to build a nice little nest egg.
I love that. No more burying our heads in the sand and hoping for the best. So speaking of nest eggs, let's chat a bit about annuities. I mean, who doesn't love the idea of a guaranteed income for life? Sounds pretty stress-free, right?
It certainly sounds appealing, doesn't it?
It does.
But like most things in life, it's not quite as straightforward as it seems at first glance.
Oh.
Because with interest rates being what they are these days, I think low is an understatement. Annuity rates have taken a bit of a hit, to put it lightly.
Ah, so that guaranteed income might not be as much as some people are expecting.
Unfortunately not. And that's why it's so important to really do your research. Explore all of your options. And the good news is there are some pretty interesting new developments in the annuity market these days.
Like what?
There are these things called flexible annuities, enhanced annuities, even deferred annuities.
Okay, those sound intriguing.
These new types of annuities offer a bit more flexibility and control compared to those traditional annuities.
All right, now we're talking. What makes them so different from those old school annuities? And more importantly, could they be a good fit for the listeners at home?
So those flexible annuities, they give you a bit more of a say in how your money's managed. Like you might be able to dip into your funds if something unexpected comes up, or even adjust your income payments if your needs change.
That's handy.
And then you've got enhanced annuities. Those are interesting because they factor in your health and lifestyle.
Hold on, so if you're a bit of a daredevil, or maybe you haven't always made the healthiest choices.
Well, let's just say an enhanced annuity might actually give you a better deal.
You're telling me those weekend pints could actually work in my favor. I like where this is going.
It might sound a bit strange, but if you have a shorter life expectancy, for whatever reason, an enhanced annuity could mean higher payouts.
Interesting. All right, what about those deferred annuities? Those sounded pretty different too.
Right, so deferred annuities are kind of like, think of them like pre-ordering your retirement income,
Pre-ordering, okay, I think I'm following.
You're basically locking in an interest rate now for an income stream that won't start until later.
Ah, clever. So it's a way to kind of outsmart those low interest rates we were talking about, like if you're worried they might stick around for a while.
That's the idea. You're hedging your bets a bit against those future market fluctuations. But it's important to remember that annuities are just one piece of the puzzle when it comes to retirement planning.
Right, of course. What about those ARFs I keep hearing about? Approved retirement funds.
Exactly. ARFs. Those are becoming increasingly popular here in Ireland.
And for good reason, from what I've gathered. If there's one thing I've learned from all the research you've done, it's that you like to be in the driver's seat, which is exactly what ARFs are all about, yeah.
You've got it. With an ARF, you're basically your own pension fund manager.
Wow, that's a lot of responsibility, but also sounds kind of exciting.
It is. You get to decide how that pension pot is invested and how you want to withdraw your savings.
So more control, but also more room for things to, well, go wrong.
That's the thing about ARFs. They offer that potential for higher returns, but there's also investment risk involved.
So not for the faint of heart.
Exactly. You need to be comfortable with the ups and downs of the market. And then there are those minimum withdrawal rules to consider.
Oh, right. You can't just leave it all in there, can you? You have to take out a certain amount every year.
That's right. Which makes sense. You've earned that money. Time to enjoy it.
I like the way you think, but there are rules around those withdrawals, aren't there?
There are. Those withdrawals are considered income and are taxed accordingly. So it's really important to understand all those rules, make sure your retirement income lasts as long as you need it to.
Right. It's not as simple as just deciding how much to take out each year. You've got to factor in those tax implications, too. Speaking of things that aren't so simple, we have to talk about PRBs.
PRBs.
Yeah. Personal retirement bonds. I have to admit, the whole idea of buying property with my pension sounds pretty wild.
Well, that's exactly what a PRB allows you to do. You use those pension funds to purchase property.
Okay, so it's not just a pipe dream. You can't actually do that.
You can, but, and this is a big but, there's some pretty strict rules around it.
Yeah, that was my next question. Like what?
For starters, you can't just buy any property.
I had a feeling there would be some caveats.
It can't be from a family member or even someone you have close business ties with.
So no retiring to that charming cottage your aunt is selling.
Afraid not. It has to be a completely independent transaction, all above board, purely for investment purposes. And you can't live in it.
Ah, so that's where they draw the line. It does seem like a pretty interesting way to build wealth for retirement, though. Any other catches?
One more important thing to keep in mind, not every pension scheme allows for this type of property purchase.
Oh, really?
You'll typically need to be using funds from an ARF, an SS, that's a small self-administered scheme, or a PRSA, a personal retirement savings account.
Got it. So it's definitely not as easy as just deciding, all right, I'm going to buy a rental property with my pension. There's definitely some research involved to figure out if you even qualify and then what the rules are. Still, it's good to know that it's an option for some people. Okay, let's switch gears a bit and talk about investment strategies because honestly, just trying to figure out my own risk tolerance feels like trying to solve a riddle sometimes.
It can definitely feel that way.
Yeah.
And it's a critical part of this whole retirement planning thing, especially with those defined contribution plans and ARFs we were talking about. Because in those cases, those investment decisions are all on you.
No pressure.
Yeah.
So are there any like set in stone rules when it comes to choosing investments for retirement? Where do you even begin?
It really depends. There's no one-size-fits-all answer, unfortunately. But there are some general guidelines that can be helpful. One big factor is your time horizon.
Time horizon, meaning how long until I retire.
Exactly. The further away retirement is for you, the more risk you can generally afford to take.
Okay, that makes sense. So if you're young and just starting out, you have more time to recover if things go a bit pear-shaped.
Precisely. If you're early in your career, it might be a good idea to lean a bit more towards stocks. Historically, those have offered higher growth potential, but of course, there's also more of a chance of things going up and down along the way.
More risk, more reward, as they say. So what about when you hit that mid-career point?
Then you might want to think about taking a more balanced approach,
Mhm.
maybe a mix of stocks and bonds, that kind of thing.
And then, as you get closer to retirement, I'm guessing that's when you want to start playing it a bit safer.
Exactly. You want to protect what you've worked so hard for, right? Things like bonds and cash, where there's less of a chance of a sudden drop in value right before you retire. You want to be enjoying those golden years, not worrying about the stock market.
Makes sense to me. So, speaking of things that are good for the soul, we have to talk about this whole ESG investing thing.
ESG investing, yes. It's definitely a hot topic these days.
It's more than just a fad, though, right? People actually care about this stuff.
Oh, absolutely. Investors are becoming much more aware of the impact their investments are having on the world.
Right, like what are my savings actually supporting out there? It's like choosing your own financial adventure, but instead of searching for treasure, you're looking for ethical companies.
That's a great way to put it. And it's definitely gaining momentum here in Ireland and globally. There are more and more ESG investment options available all the time.
Like what? Any examples?
Well, Irish Life, for example, they now offer an ESG-focused ARF so you can align those investments with your values while you're planning for your retirement.
So you really can find concrete ways to incorporate these principles into your retirement plan. That's fantastic. It's not just a pipe dream anymore. Sounds like it could be a win-win, potentially boosting your retirement savings while also doing some good for the world.
Exactly. It's all about finding that sweet spot where your financial goals and your personal values intersect.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground here today. Annuities, ARFs, PRBs, even buying property with your pension.
Yeah.
Not to mention this whole world of ESG investing.
It's been quite a journey through the ins and outs of Irish retirement planning.
It really has. But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about. We've thrown a lot of information at you, but at the end of the day, it all comes down to you and what makes sense for your own situation. So if you had to pick one action to take, just one, based on what we've discussed today, what would it be and why? What one small change could you make today to set yourself up for a brighter future? That's something to sleep on. And remember, this is just the tip of the iceberg. There are tons of resources out there to help you navigate all of this. The Pensions Authority website is a great place to start. And don't forget about the revenue commissioners for all those tax-related questions.
And never underestimate the value of getting personalized advice from a qualified financial advisor. They can help you put all the pieces together.
Wise words. Well, on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into Irish retirement planning. We hope you found it as refreshing as a cool pint of Guinness on a sunny day, and maybe just a tad less likely to give you a headache. Until next time, may your retirement plans be as bright as a shamrock on St. Patrick's Day.
Slán go foioi.